This video is supposed to be just a fun rant to make Veblen more fun and more interesting, and so you can play with it as much as I do when I read it. It's so fun. First, though, we need a preface. None of this will make sense if you refuse to admit that all of us, you, me, do a lot of things for reasons we won't admit. That there are a lot of unconscious reasons for why we do things. We lie to ourselves constantly. We rationalize away the real reasons we do things. We do things to get attention. We lie to ourselves and say, I don't care what people think of me. It's my perception. So if you can buy that, and you should be able to buy that when we look at the crazy behavior we do, then you can understand that a lot of the things we do are for these other motivations. Now, you could argue that they have multiple motivations, that's fine, but I hope that you can start to admit that you do things for the reasons that Veblen is going to say. You do things to show people that you are rich, that you have tons of free time, and that you have all of this leisure activity just to display to the world that I am rich and look at all of the leisure time I have to enjoy my wealth. So there is going to be a lot of just random splicing as I go through example after example, and I would highly recommend that after you get the point of the examples, that you just stop the video and write down 100 different examples that you see. Now, of course, what you're going to do, just like what I do, is you're going to point and laugh at the things that you see around you. Look at these weirdos, and that's going to distract you from yourself. So I'm going to go in the opposite order. I'm going to start with my confessions of how I do this to get those out of the way, because I am sure if I left the comments on in this video, there would be just so many comments showing what a hypocrite I am. Look at all the things you do that Veblen would criticize. All right, so I'll just pick the obvious ones, okay? First, the stupid beard, right? What's the idea? I have this beard, and I give myself all these reasons, right? Because it's glorious, and because it's so fun, and right? And I don't care what people think, so I have an ugly beard. But notice what the subtext is. I don't have to look perfectly manicured because what? I don't have a boss. I'm a professor, I'm an artist, I'm a creative thinker, so I can look like I'm homeless, right? Because rich people can look however they want. Good? Oh. Don't look at all the stupid books. What do the books portray? First, sadly, look at what I can afford. But in my case, more specifically, look at all the free time I have to devote to reading all the works of such and such philosopher. That takes a lot of affluence and a lot of free time to be able to do that. Or else, to pretend I have all that free time and I have to stay up late to do this, but to show to the world, look at how well read I am. My vocabulary shows that I'm affluent and have tons of free time to take in all this sophisticated language. Oh, sorry, languages. I studied ancient Greek. I know some French. I know some vocabulary. What is this? Obscure knowledge that shows to the world I have tons of free time to devote myself to hours of study of these obscure things. What? Oh, now, okay, that's enough. You. The equivalent for you would be your knowledge of astrology and yoga poses and superfoods and crystals and obscure religions and your weird vocabulary about aliens and whatever woke stuff you're doing is showing that, look, you have tons of free time to devote to the knowledge of these obscure things. All right, that's enough. Enough defensiveness. Now let's just play with, and again, just random rants about all sorts of things. When you see the clear picture and start to see things for yourself, then please quit the video, right? This is just to make Veblen a lot of fun, because when you're reading Veblen, you should be constantly thinking of things in our society that he would be talking about if he wrote this today. All right, sure, it's one of my favorites. If you imagine the most cartoonish version of a pimp, right, what do you see? Right? You see a pimp in all sorts of fancy clothing, tons of jewelry, probably has a pimp cane and a chalice, right? Okay, what's the equivalent here? You. What do you do? And sorry, it's going to sound very sexist because it's going to talk a lot about women's behavior, right? And then you can see that this is how women are forced into this behavior. So it's not hardly me being sexist, it's pointing out the sexism. Okay? Think of a middle class successful woman, right? What does she look like? She has a coffee in one hand, she has a cell phone in the other hand, she has her bag, right, that she can barely hold on to with her cell phone and her coffee. What's the point? It's the same point as the pimp. The pimp has a cane and a chalice. Why? Because doesn't have to do anything. He can walk around. He doesn't even have to use his hands. Now notice how just obscurely weird this is, that a woman today looks the same way. That she can't even open a door, but you know she has to open a door. And so what is the idea? I have all this stuff that just shows that I don't work hard and I'm just going through my life as a little trophy wife. When really, look at how much effort that takes to hold all these things while you have to open your own door. You're not a pimp with a bunch of servants opening the door for you. I'm sorry. Another one. Long fingernails. Now notice, what do those portray whether you notice it or not? They portray that you can't work hard. You can't even pick up things, let alone use a hammer or type. And what else? They're constantly changed. New colors, new looks. It shows I have tons of extra wealth and extra free time to devote to these things that make me unable to work hard. Tight clothing, jeans so tight that you can't bend over, or skirts so short that you can't bend over, tops that are loose and show so much cleavage that you can't really move around without exposing yourself. Again, I'm a little trophy. I don't have to work. No one can make me run because I couldn't run in these shoes anyway, and I've never been outside except on my vacations. We'll get to that in a second. So I have shoes I can barely walk in, let alone go upstairs in, or downstairs. But no. For fun, think of how wealthy people displayed their wealth in the classic movie or grotesque, sorry, Donald Trump sense of the word. What did you do? You had a bunch of cars. My favorite, you had a bunch of topiary bushes and all this innate landscaping without a weed to be found. Now, what were you trying to show? That you had a ton of servants to take care of your house, your landscaping, and your cars. And how do you display how many servants you have? By displaying all the work they had to do. And notice how we're still carrying over some of the remnants of how this looked. Now, remember, when we're talking about, say, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right, it was the man that went to work. And so what did you have to do? If you were a man and had to admit that you worked for a living, now, you wore a perfect suit, right? You made it really expensive to show your wealth in that way and show your privilege and importance. But you had to not only show that you had a lot of wealth, but that at least someone had free time. Thus, you had the invention of the trophy wife. But before that, you were supposed to have a wife that displayed that she didn't work at all, that she had tons of free time to devote to goofy little hobbies. So she was really invested in her home decorations. She was perfectly kept, always wearing white and the newest fashions to show that she could afford to keep up with every fashion. Nowadays, of course, you have to have a new pair of jeans every year because they change the fit every year to show that you are wealthy enough to keep up with the trends. She had hair that was perfectly well done. And notice, she probably did it herself, but it has to be so well manicured that it looks like she goes to the hairdressers every day. Now, maybe she did, but the other women who couldn't afford to do such things still had to keep up with that appearance to make it look like they went to the hairdressers every day as well. Now notice how we try to imitate this. We go to constant car washes so it either looks that our car is brand new or that we are constantly cleaning it to make it look new, but devoting all this time to the freshness of our car, right? The immaculately clean house, perfectly clean clothes. I'm wearing white today on purpose. I don't have a lot of white clothes. What are white clothes? They prove that you don't work hard. You don't work outside because they would get dirty. And then you have fragile clothes that are hard to take care of and need to be dry cleaned because your servants can take them to the dry cleaners for you. And if they ever get dirty, you'll just get a new one. My fresh new car, my brand new shoes, right, that show that I spend a lot of money on them And I never work hard because that would get them dirty. All right, try another one. The one that a lot of people miss is the one where you try to display how much free leisure time you have. Now mine, remember, languages, reading all these books. But think of how we devote ourselves to things like yoga poses, a bunch of trivia about sports, nutrition and diet. Think of how much free time it displays when you can name off every nutrient in a superfood that you spend a ton of money on, or the ones that people like that I know have. Spending a fortune on a gaming computer, bragging about how overclocked your frame rates are to show my graphics card costs this much money, or I have this much time to tinker with something that's fairly meaningless and show it to the world. Look how many hours I spent on this video game. Look at how much time is devoted. Nobody has this avatar on Steam. That's how much free time I have to devote to this stuff. I've spent thousands of hours researching anime, or at least you need to make it look like you did. Now, really, you probably just spent a fortune and bought that avatar by some little kid in South Korea who spent that much time on the video game. But now you can make it look like you either have that much money or that much free time. Oh, the other thing people use to disguise this is they fail to realize that things have shifted over time. Because when I point to things like wearing t-shirts, and they're expensive, but it doesn't make sense why they are, yoga clothes, things like this, and you would say, Jeff, that's casual. Yes. Wealth now is displayed in the ability to be casual. You don't have to wear a uniform or a suit because you just have free time to devote to yoga, to devote to your gym, right? Hey, Jeff, I only do that to be healthy. Give me a break. Your body goals are purely visual and display how much time you devoted to your body goals. No, sorry, you're not a hard worker that got those muscles. You can't even put your elbows down because you're so, yoked. Sorry, that's hilarious. But notice the reversal. In the old days, if you were wealthy, you wanted to be as pale as possible and as chubby as possible or as frail as possible to show what? I don't work outside. I have tons of food to eat. I spend my time just cultivating my palate, or I'm so frail that I can't work at all and people have to serve me. You get pound feet and all of these things. Well, today, notice it's reversed. Today, you want to make it look like you, long fingernails again, don't work inside and type all day. You want to make it look like you go on vacation all the time. So you have a nice tan. You have a Jeep for that vacation that you don't take. You're trying to make it look like you spend a ton of free time outside devoted to yoga and working out and going to the gym because you're independently wealthy and don't have to do any work. You just go skiing all the time. And then your physical appearance is like a topiary bush. Your eyebrows, your eyelashes, your haircut require constant maintenance. Now, of course, the sad part is a lot of people are working class, lower middle class, and work constantly, but then they make sure they have enough free time to make it look like they spend all their time just cultivating their appearance with their special piercings, the right tattoos. They cost a fortune, and you know the detail cost a fortune in these tattoos you have. But look, I take time on my fingernails, my hair, right? Men with their perfect beards and perfect haircuts to show that all I do is go to the barber shop all the time. I don't work hard, and yet a lot of you work really hard. And then make sure you save enough time to rush to make it look like you don't work hard, but just hang out at the barber shop or the gym all day long. Or the constant, just continuous posting to social media like you're some kind of celebrity that just sits and posts on social media all day. How do you have enough time to do that? You don't, but you somehow manage to not get fired while you post to social media all the time like you don't have a job at all. Or take how many expensive things are purchased that have features you don't even need just to show the extravagant extra wealth you have. Your cell phone. You don't need that much tech on your cell phone, but it displays to the world, look, I spend more on a phone than I need to. I'm not going to be filming the next Academy Award-winning film on my phone, but I could because my camera, it has so much more tech that I need. I mean, this is like rich people buying supercars that they'll never drive fast, but that makes it even more extravagant and displaying of wealth that you have. Because look, I have a Ferrari that I'll drive from car wash to car wash, and yeah, one time I got it up to 95 miles per hour. The thing goes so fast. That's not the point. The point is showing I have things that I don't even need. I have a big power truck that doesn't have a single scratch on it. It's never been taken off-road, although I did go over that curb once to take a shortcut to my car wash, right? Jeeps with all sorts of junk all over them, shovels and cranes and so forth, to show that look how much time and money I devote to my Jeep to give this appearance of a lifestyle where I'm constantly going off-road because, that's how much rich free time I have when the thing is actually spotless without a scratch on it and it's perfectly clean. Oh, and lastly, please know, none of this is new. Right, I was reading some neat book called, I think, At Home by Bryson, and he was pointing out in the history of homes, this has always been the case. People always kept candles that were almost fresh but used a little bit to make it look like they always had a fresh candle. Now, of course, what would they do? They would only get those out when company came over and switch them out for the ones that were always dwindling and they were trying to keep reusing over and over. There is even stories about what were some luxuries that were rare. Things like salt, pepper, even sugar were very expensive and hard to get. There is stories of people actually making their teeth rot on purpose so it would look like they're constantly drinking sugar with their tea to make it look like they were wealthy and had tons of sugar. Like, just insane. Nothing new, standard stuff. We are no different than those weirdos in the past.